I'm here today to ask you guys to help me make America great again. That's something we've probably been hearing a lot right now. I'm not going to ask you to wear, the silly red hats with the words plastered across it. I'm not going to, try to, elect anyone in particular with, empty promises, some less than, progressive ideals about minorities and others. But I think we can make America great again with some slight changes to our American court system. As it stands, according to the Fraser Institute, a website that collects data from all the countries in the world and stacks them against each other in terms of just raw freedom, whether it be economic, which America is the strongest, we're currently 12th, civil liberties, and then things like justice, which we sort of lag behind, putting us just barely at the 20th spot. There are 19 countries freer than the freest country in the US, or in the world. So, why is this? Well, the justice system is a big part of it. Our justice system incarcerates more people than pretty much any other two justice systems in the world combined, more than Russia or Saudi Arabia or anywhere they cut off hands. But after reading a large number of things, like the book Unfair, The New Science of Criminal Justice, a fantastic book I suggest you all read, it came out last year. It's by a guy who went into the justice system, and it was really sort of the cornerstone of my entire speech today, because he looked at everything, how people are put into jail, why they're put into jail, and ultimately why our system has so much more of an ability to put people into jail. I also looked at the various perspectives on this, the plea bargain in particular, from John H. Langbein, Tina Wan, Timothy Sanford, and Douglas Savinsky, all people well within laws, several doctors in there along the list. I can go down, but why am I talking about this? Well, we all might find ourselves someday in a court, whether it's for something good or against someone or something bad. The important thing is that since we are part of this and part of our civic duty, the court system is something that we should all have an active part in. Although for most of us, the court system is just something that we try to avoid when we get that paper saying to come in for 2 hours, then you try to pretend you're racist or something so you get out of it. So the problems of the court system can lead to innocent people getting imprisoned and guilty people getting away. Because remember, if someone who is really the perpetrator of the crime gets their crime put on someone else, then they've effectively gotten away scot-free. So let's help make our country freest be a bit more freer. So the plea bargain, I'm going to do a slight refresher. It's the process by which prosecutors and usually law enforcement try to get a confession out of someone. Since, as you know, courts are sort of like big plays for people. They're there to demonstrate the several. Well, you saw the movie last week, where it was less about how people felt emotionally. It wasn't necessarily about them looking at the facts. Now, in real life, we don't always have juror number 7 or whatever fighting for us, questioning every aspect of it. Sometimes they're just all together and they want to go home and watch the baseball game or something. So people know that, and prosecutors and defendants and the like would try to avoid this entire system because they don't like it. It's not something that they can always win. If you can win the thing before you even get to it with a plea bargain, which allows you to essentially forego the process, it makes it a lot easier for everyone. So what this does is people opt out essentially for the full sentence of a crime or any long-term by saying foregoing the process, writing out on a little piece of paper, adjudicated by usually several lawyers, that they in fact did commit a crime and are guilty of it. So this is a written confession, something that you hear, they try to get out of people all the time. And by essentially giving the confession to foregoing the process, they allow them to essentially get an easier deal. So instead of saying, I'm going to get 20 years for this, drug possession, I'm going to admit I have it right away, sign on my rights, and all of a sudden, all right, now I got 6 years. That's 14 of my years of life back. And if you're someone who comes from a poor, less educated area of the world, this would be a big help because you're not going to be able to defend yourself. You're not going to be able to afford the Johnny Cochran's of the world like OJ. You're going to afford some poor guy who is who overworks to death. You're going to get a public defender who on average only have about 20 minutes for every new case they get of just them concentrating. They got 20 minutes to make your defense. That doesn't sound like someone I want defending me. The Innocence Project is something that people have been used. They go back and using stuff like DNA evidence and just basic legal appeals to people who are, say, on something like death row or just extended life sentences. They go back and they try to find any problems within the case, legally faulty, and they've essentially released over 300 people who are pretty much guaranteed innocent, who physically could not have committed the crime in any stretch of the imagination. So why do they have to go through this? Well, the confession system is part of that. The confession system makes it so hard for people to, even courts going back and reviewing a case to try and get someone off. They see someone say, okay, well, he couldn't have been there, he couldn't have. For example, this one case where a 12-year-old girl was raped, and for the prosecutor to get the defendant who was wrongfully accused, the defense he had to go with was the fact that she had sex with someone else earlier that day, a 12-year-old girl. But the jury still managed to convict him because he had a written confession. They said, why would he confess to something he didn't do? Juries may not be exactly knowledge on how the confession system works, but they see written confession, and they don't want this scary rapist back out on the streets. Police are a big part of it too. They use their coercion tactics. I'm sure you've all seen on the TV shows how they go in and then they put you in a chair and then they have good cop, bad cop. It's maybe not exactly like that, but it's there. It's there to break you down and sort of force your hand. They try to get on your side and realize hey, you might not have done it, so let's just get out of here. Many of them do know. There have been many police officers who come out and say, yeah, I know this person didn't do it, but I'm just trying to help them in their best interest. Because they might not want to have someone in jail, but they know they're not going to get off. So what can we do to change this system? This is a bit more complicated, but we could try to give maybe people more legal representation. They're guaranteed. A public defender is, it's a guaranteed right, but it might not essentially be the best if we really want something to help people. Because during the writing of our legal systems, they couldn't imagine a law system or a country even as big as ours. So applying the older, smaller scale tactics to large swaths of people, millions and millions of people, maybe having a system where we put a bit more money into legal defense and we won't end up with so many people, sitting in our jails for, $165,000 a year. If the plea bargain, something I noticed is that in my research is that people generally, even those who are in support of it, none of them seem to be completely in support of it. They all believe in some level of reform. It's not something that's like, oh no, we can't even touch the thing. Even the Timothy Sandford, the sort of poster boy for the plea bargain, the one who's come out to its largest defense, says that yes, it does have problems. It has things within it that make it so, it's usually racially unjust. Usually it's poor black people or minorities or Hispanics. Anyone who can't afford it, they're the ones that end up on the short end of the stick. And it's really not servicing them. Another thing that we could possibly do is change the way that prosecution works. As prosecution stands, what it is, the better prosecutor are, the more people you put in jail. It's not whether you put the more guilty people in jail, it's just whether you put more people in jail. So I think if we were to change maybe how the prosecution system works, maybe not hiring people on how well they're putting people away, but how well they're representing the case, and maybe working with defendants, trying to get something to work out. So can we make America great again? I hope so. I don't know. I'm asking a lot here. Maybe the total, reinstatement of the justice system maybe seem like a bit much, but I feel if we just take a little time, care for the criminals, maybe, work in a wheel of death or two, we could find a way to get through this.